The belt hit the table before it hit me. My father stood over me while my mother said, "You're a girl. You serve him." My 17-year-old brother watched, waiting for me to apologize for refusing to wash his clothes, clean his bathroom, and pack his lunches. I was 18, but in that house. I wasn't a daughter. I was unpaid help. Then Dad gave me one choice: do Caleb's laundry or get out. So I chose the door. They thought I was leaving with nothing. What they didn't know was that I had already taken the one thing holding their perfect life together. People in our neighborhood thought the Whitmore house ran on discipline. The lawn was edged every Saturday. The windows never showed fingerprints. Dad's shirts hung in the closet with sharp creases. And Caleb's school uniforms were always ready before sunrise. They gave my mother credit for all of it. Nobody noticed me standing behind the ironing board at midnight. My name is Hannah Whitmore. I was 18 that summer, fresh out of high school, with an acceptance letter to a community college nursing program folded inside a blue notebook I kept hidden in my backpack. That notebook held more than plans. It held proof. I had been helping around the house since I was 8. At least. That was the word Mom used. Helping. By 10. Helping meant waking before everyone else, starting coffee, packing lunches, checking the grocery list, and making sure Caleb had whatever he needed. Caleb was 17, only 1 year younger than me, but my parents treated him like a visiting prince. If he dropped his soccer jersey beside the washing machine, Mom called my name. If he forgot an assignment, Dad asked why I had not reminded him. If he left plates under his bed until the room smelled like old cheese and ketchup, I was told to stop being lazy and clean it. Caleb never asked. He expected. One night, close to midnight, he tossed a grass-stained uniform onto the laundry room floor while I was studying anatomy terms at the kitchen table. "I need that by morning," he said. I looked at the clock, then wash it. He laughed like I had told a joke. Mom appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "Your brother has practice. I have an exam. He needs the uniform." That was how decisions were made in our house. Caleb needed. Hannah adjusted. Dad called it contribution. "You live under my roof," he would say, tapping one finger against the table. "You contribute." But contribution never meant Caleb clearing his own plate. It never meant Mom defending me. It never meant Dad asking whether I was tired. It meant I worked until everyone else was comfortable. For years, I believed comfort might turn into love. I saved every weak little sign of approval. A birthday card with 3 words from Mom. A rare nod from Dad when dinner was hot. A half smile from Caleb when I fixed something before he noticed it was broken. I kept telling myself one day they would see me. Instead, the more I did, the less visible I became. So I started writing everything down in the blue notebook. Meals cooked, loads washed, missed study hours. Times I was blamed for Caleb's mistakes. Then, slowly, I began saying no. I stopped carrying food to Caleb's room. I stopped checking his backpack. And one Thursday, I left his wrinkled shirt exactly where he had dropped it. That evening, Dad called us into the living room. He said it was time for a family meeting. The belt beside his chair told me this family meeting had never been meant as any kind of conversation. Dad sat in his recliner with one ankle resting over his knee. Mom stood beside the couch, arms folded tight. Caleb sprawled across the cushions, scrolling on his phone like he had already won. There was no chair for me. The belt lay on the side table beside Dad's coffee mug. He always took it off after work, but that night, the buckle faced me. "Sit down," Dad said. I stayed standing. Mom exhaled through her nose. "Your brother says you've been neglecting your responsibilities." "My responsibilities? His laundry is still in the basket. His bathroom is disgusting." He wore a wrinkled shirt to school. Caleb finally looked up. Everyone noticed. I stared at him. "You're 17. You can use a washing machine." His mouth twisted into a smirk. Mom's face hardened. "You're a girl. You serve him." The room went still. I had heard versions of that sentence my whole life, but never that clean, never that shameless. "He's a boy," she continued. "He deserves better, better than what I asked, better than me." No one answered. Dad leaned forward. This isn't about feelings, it's about respect. I cook, I clean, I pack lunches, I keep track of his school schedule. I do more in this house than anyone. You live here, Dad said. That's your contribution. I pay for my own bus pass. I work weekends. I'm starting college in a few weeks. And you still live under my roof. I felt the old panic rise in my chest, the one that usually made me apologize before I even knew what I had done wrong. This time, I let it rise. Then I let it pass. I'll clean up after myself, I said. I'll help with shared chores, but I'm done washing Caleb's clothes, cleaning his room, and managing his life. Caleb sat up. You can't just stop. I already did. Dad stood so fast the recliner snapped backward. Do his laundry or get out. Mom looked at me like the choice was obvious. Caleb leaned back again, waiting for me to fold. I looked at the three of them and finally understood. They did not want a daughter. They wanted a system that never said no. I choose out, I said. Dad's face changed. He grabbed the belt. The first strike caught my arm. The second hit across my back. I stumbled into the coffee table and heard Caleb suck in a breath. But he never moved. I looked at Mom. She watched. That hurt more than the belt. When Dad raised his hand again, I straightened. I'm not his maid, I said, and I'm not your property. Then I grabbed my backpack and walked toward the door. Behind me, Dad shouted that I would be back before sunrise. He did not know the blue notebook was already inside my bag. Neither did he know that, for the first time in my life, I was not walking away in panic. I was walking toward an address, a locked account, and a future they could no longer touch. By sunrise, their rules would mean nothing to me again. The night air felt colder against the welts on my back. Every step made the strap of my backpack rub against my shoulder. But I kept moving. 2 miles. That was all that stood between me and Amara's porch light. When she opened the door, she took one look at my face and stepped aside. Come in. No questions. No lecture. No demand for proof. Her mother found a clean towel, a bag of frozen peas, and an old yoga mat for the storage room. I slept under a thin blanket with my hoodie rolled beneath my head. The floor was hard, and my ribs ached every time I turned. Still, it was the safest night of my life. The next morning, I woke to the smell of pancakes and coffee. Amara's mother set a plate in front of me, then sat down across the table. You don't have to earn breakfast here, she said. I looked at the syrup running over the edge of the pancakes and nearly cried. For 3 days. My phone stayed silent. No message asking if I was safe, no apology. No one asking where I had gone. On the 4th morning, Mom finally texted, Caleb has no clean clothes. Stop this nonsense and come home. I read it twice. They did not miss me. They missed what I did. That was the moment the last bit of hope inside me finally stopped begging. I opened the blue notebook and wrote a new title across a blank page. What happens when I stop doing everything? Then I began closing every door they could still use. Because I was 18, I moved my savings into an account only I controlled. I changed the passwords to my email, school portal, and phone plan. With help from my school counselor, I confirmed my financial aid, my nursing enrollment, and the documents I would need before classes started. I photographed the bruises. I saved every message, not to threaten them. To protect myself if they decided to lie. Amara's mother helped me retrieve one small box of personal papers while Dad was at work. I did not take furniture, money, or anything that was not mine. I took my birth certificate, my clothes, and the birthday card I had spent years pretending meant love. Within a month, the cracks began showing. Caleb carried a trash bag of clothes into a laundromat. Mom missed 2 bill payments because I had always tracked the dates. Dad arrived late to work after oversleeping without his coffee, lunch, or pressed shirt waiting for him. I did not celebrate. I started a part-time job at a bookstore and prepared for college. Then, 3 months after I left, Mom sent 6 messages in one afternoon. Caleb had an awards ceremony. His suit was wrinkled, his papers were missing, and apparently, the family needed me back for one night. But her message revealed they had learned nothing at all. Family helps family. Be here by 6. Mom's 6 messages were followed by one from Dad. If you don't come home tonight, don't call yourself part of this family. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My body remembered the living room before my mind did. The belt buckle. The coffee table. Mom's motionless face. For one dangerous minute, I almost went back. I pictured Caleb entering the ceremony in a wrinkled suit. I heard Mom's voice telling me his embarrassment would be my fault. I reached for my bus card. Amara looked up from the kitchen table. "Do they want you there?" she asked. "Or do they want your work?" That stopped me. I read the messages again. Not one asked about college. Not one mentioned my injuries. Not one said they were sorry. They wanted pressed fabric, organized papers, and a daughter who disappeared behind everyone else. So I typed slowly. I will not return to prepare Caleb for the ceremony. I will not accept threats, orders, or violence. Contact me only in writing and only about my remaining belongings. My thumb hovered over send. Then I pressed it. Mom replied immediately. "You are humiliating us." Dad wrote next. "You owe this family." I turned my phone face down and went to work. They expected me to change my mind before 6. I didn't. Caleb arrived late. His suit was creased, and he had forgotten a form the school required. He still received his award. But the polished family picture my parents planned never happened. I did not cause that. I simply stopped preventing it. 2 days later, they came to the bookstore. Dad entered first, shoulders rigid, scanning the room until he found me behind the register. Mom followed, clutching her purse. "Get your things," Dad said. "You're coming home." My manager looked over from the history section. I kept my voice low. "No." Mom stepped closer. "Do you understand what you've done to this family? Do you understand what you did to me?" Her eyes flicked toward Dad. He pointed at the door. "We fed you. We housed you. You owe us respect." I reached beneath the counter and pulled out a folder. Inside was a summary from my blue notebook. Meals cooked, laundry washed, study hours lost, times I had taken the blame for Caleb. I placed it on the counter. "I'm not asking for money," I said. "This exists so you can never say I contributed nothing." Dad's face tightened. "You kept records on your own family, I had to. You kept changing the truth." Mom lowered her voice. "People are talking about me leaving, about Caleb, about the house, about your father." I almost laughed. "So that's why you're here." Dad leaned closer. "You think that job and a few classes make you independent? They make me unreachable to you." For the first time, fear crossed his face. I told them there would be no relationship until Dad admitted he hit me. Mom stopped defending the favoritism, and Caleb learned to manage his own life. Mom whispered, "We're still your family." "Then act like one." Dad opened his mouth, but my manager stepped beside me. "Is there a problem?" Dad looked around. Customers were watching. He could not shout. He could not order me into a car. He could not turn the store into his courtroom. His power had only worked behind closed doors. Mom reached for the folder. I pulled it back. "This is my copy." Her hand dropped. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm just not rescuing you anymore." Then I turned to the next customer and asked if she needed a bag. My parents stood there, suddenly smaller beneath the fluorescent lights. Then they left, for the first time. They walked away because I allowed it. The consequences did not arrive all at once. They came slowly, in missed alarms, burned dinners, late notices, and small humiliations no one could blame on me anymore. Dad started showing up late to work, without coffee waiting, lunch packed, or his shirts pressed. Mornings exposed how little he had ever managed for himself. A month later, he was warned after snapping at a coworker during a staff meeting. I did not report him. I did not interfere. He carried his temper into that room all by himself. Mom struggled with the house. She missed payment dates, forgot grocery lists, and began serving frozen meals 3 nights a week. For years, she had called my work simple. Now she stood in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by dishes, learning what simple had cost me. Caleb fell apart first. He missed assignments. He wore the same shirt twice. He blamed me when his coach benched him for arriving late. Then one teacher refused to accept another excuse. "You're 17, she told him. "Use a calendar." For the first time, someone outside our house made him face the truth. He started working a few weekend hours at a grocery store. He learned to separate dark clothes from light ones after ruining 2 shirts. He still complained. He still told people I had abandoned him. But complaints no longer cleaned his room. I stayed with Amara and her mother for 3 months. I worked evenings at the bookstore, took the bus to campus, and saved every dollar I could. Financial aid covered most of tuition. My paycheck covered food, transportation, and eventually the deposit on a studio near school. The apartment had one narrow window, a floor that creaked near the sink, and a shower that changed temperature without warning. I loved every inch of it. There were 2 laundry baskets beside the closet. Both were mine. The blue notebook changed too. I stopped filling it with chores and accusations. I wrote down class schedules, work shifts, rent dates, and goals that belonged only to me. One evening, Mom sent a message. "The house has not been the same since you left." I stared at it for a long time. It was the closest she had come to admitting anything, but it was not an apology. I answered once. Recognizing what I did is a beginning. Taking responsibility for what happened is the next step. She did not reply. I did not go back. I was learning that an open door did not mean I had to walk through it. Reconciliation required truth, not loneliness, in nursing classes. I found myself drawn to patients who flinched when family members spoke for them. I recognized that silence. I knew what it meant to disappear in a crowded room. At last, my past was becoming something other than a wound. It was becoming a reason to protect people, and somewhere between late shifts, anatomy exams, and folding my own clothes, I understood the truth my family never taught me. Peace did not begin when they finally saw my value. It began when I did, a few months later. I walked through my old neighborhood on the way home from class. The Whitmore house looked smaller than I remembered. Same trimmed lawn, same clean windows, different silence. I did not stop. My apartment key pressed against my palm. The blue notebook rested in my backpack. No longer filled with chores, blame, or proof. Now it held clinical notes, work schedules, and plans for a future no one else controlled. My family taught me that love had to be earned through obedience. Life taught me something better. Love does not ask you to disappear. Gratitude does not require you to accept cruelty. And setting a boundary is not revenge. I did not win because my father lost control. My mother struggled, or Caleb finally learned to wash his own clothes. I won because I stopped needing their failure to prove my worth. Maybe you have been called selfish for saying no. Maybe someone used the word family to keep you trapped in a role that was breaking you. You are not alone. If you have ever had to choose between family loyalty and dignity, share your story in the comments and subscribe so you do not miss the next story.